Inside Africa, in association with Zenith Bank.
It is a musical style that has a devoted following.
Jazz is music like any other music. The special thing about jazz, the unknown factor. What's gonna happen that you don't know? You're sitting, seeing a jazz musician, and you don't know what he's gonna play now. So this spontaneous composing that you are not aware as an audience, this is what makes jazz special, because this constituent is not existing in any kind of music.
In the hands of some determined individuals, it is continuing to thrive.
Sharing music is a universal language. It carries the history of so many people before us, and it carries the live and real-time moment that we live in through the people that are coming, so we connect to each other.
This is Jazz Egyptian style. This is Inside Africa. Amra Salah is one of Egypt's most influential jazz musicians. A talented pianist, performer and composer, he was one of the founder members of the seminal band Eftekasat. Recently, he got the band back together for a special performance in Cairo.
We're having a reunion. Eftekasat is playing again after many years. Last time we were together on stage, that was 2008. Well, it's very exciting, real thrill.
But Amra isn't just interested in his own band. For the last 10 years, he has helped organize the Cairo Jazz Festival, an event that brings together Egypt's best performers as well as established international stars. Original music as well as classic tunes like Glenn Miller's In the Mood are all part of the entertainment. Hours before it was due to start, there was still plenty of work to be done.
How do I feel 3 hours before the festival? It's very exciting and so many mixed feelings, actually. If you put yourself in this situation, your mind is so full of things that you need to stabilize and maintain and make sure that everybody's happy. With the first note, then I take my time. I go back to beside the sound engineer, and I keep hanging to him. And then after the first song, then yeah, that's okay. I can say that we have a festival.
This year, the festival is being held at the American University of Cairo. The university sees it as an opportunity to let the world know about Egypt's rich cultural heritage.
It's part of a bigger plan, a bigger conspiracy to bring Cairo and Egypt back into its rightful place as a hub of cultural activity for the region and for the world. This festival, it's in its 10th year. It's an international festival. We're bringing in groups from 15 different countries, including Egypt. And what we really like about this is that we have Egyptians playing with people from other countries, because jazz is a universal cultural language.
Stages built and sound checks completed, the festival starts with a cacophony of color and sound. Now a well-established part of Cairo's cultural scene, Amra says the idea for the festival was sparked in some ways by the success of his band.
At that time I was playing with Eftekasat, and we're really busy in like traveling a lot and playing in great concerts in different venues, and we had chances to play in big festivals, like where masses of people and the great artists and big stages. And the atmosphere itself is really beautiful. So I said, like, well, we need to have, why don't we have that here? Like, since we have jazz here, like at that time the Cairo Opera House was like running a beautiful program. They're inviting jazz musicians from all over the world, especially from the United States, but like we saw jazz from France and from England, from all the countries. So I said, like, since we have that here, like, and we have audience listening to jazz, so why don't we have a jazz festival here? There is something happening here. So why don't we combine all these people together, get them on stage, and put together a jazz festival?
One of the biggest stars performing at this year's festival is Noha Fekri. Her set combines Egyptian-influenced music with crowd pleasers such as Herbie Hancock's Watermelon Man.
If I take it in a very selfish sense, just the beauty of having 4 or 3 days in a row or longer with music every day, it's just very nourishing to me as a human being. I'm listening to other people expressing themselves, expressing their ideas, sharing their cultures and whatnot. And but also musically, you know how it can be very soothing, it can be very inspiring, it can be very healing, it can be very exciting. So in many ways it's very stimulating and nourishing.
For her, like many of the artists appearing at the festival, music is, of course, important. But she believes something else happens when you bring such a diverse group of people together.
The only bigger thing that I can think of, which is pretty big, is connecting us as human beings, because there are so many ways of how we look right now. We're separated with fake borders. I say fake because we drew them, but they don't really exist. They don't exist on the land. As far as I'm concerned, we belong to the earth, and anywhere should be our home, and anyone should be our sibling or cousin, or it doesn't matter if we're connected by blood or not. In that sense, these borders kind of disappear for moments, and if we can elongate that, I think this is a huge thing, because it's the closest to the truth, as far as I'm concerned.
While most of the action at this year's festival was taking place at the university, there were spin-off events at notable venues, including the legendary Cairo Jazz Club. This year marked the 10th annual Cairo Jazz Festival. For organizer Amra Salah, it is a labor of love. But, he says, when all the artists from around the world are gathered together, he can relax a little in the knowledge that all the hard work has paid off.
It's beautiful, like, to see different cultures and backgrounds coming, you know, in one place to celebrate one of the really beautiful music genres. Everybody's coming with his own flavor and background. And the more important is like the mixes, like like today. I mean, we're presenting an Egyptian very young singer. She comes from an opera background, but she loved jazz, and she's singing along with the Luxembourg guys. So, I mean, this interaction is beautiful, like, to see that. I mean, that this is, if we're speaking about culture exchange and mixes. This is a culture mix that you know, bringing people together.
While the music is central to the festival, what jazz represents is also a key element.
Jazz is so deep, and it's so wide, and it's so colorful, and it's so sophisticated and fun.
Noha Fekri likes to mix new music with ever-popular numbers like Watermelon Man by Herbie Hancock.
The souls that went into making this is so broad, so sophisticated, so full of joy and pain, and so it's not a coincidence that I think that it's that fantastic.
I always relate jazz to freedom. Jazz is very much about freedom. It was accompanying in the 50s, 60s, liberal movements around the world. It is related so much to politics and to like a way to send messages to masses, like be free, express yourself, think out of the box, be avant-garde, be progressive, experimental, just like, you know, that's how I see jazz.
I think we should just express ourselves, plain and simple. We're not supposed to be telling people what to do and what not to do. I think what should be best done is to be true to ourselves and just speak our own truth. My truth is my truth, and I try to voice it, that's all.
Jazz, according to me, is a way of thinking and a human experience, like and a thought before being a note. That is the thing that transcended or like crossed over borders and traveled across the world, like and propagated in this way to make people attracted to this kind of music and to like develop and see lots of different projects with different sounds. They all belong to jazz, but in different parts of the world.
There is nowhere in Cairo that embraces the bohemian atmosphere that comes with jazz more than the Cairo Jazz Club. It was revamped by its current owners at the start of this century, but it still retains the feel and atmosphere many people associate with the music.
Well, we were quite clear on what we wanted to see. We wanted a jazz club experience, irrespective of the genres of music. But, I mean, people go out to have a good time. They drink, they eat, but they go out to have a good time. And a lot of places actually miss that point. And their focus is much more on, you know, the bar or the kitchen. And we wanted to offer a more wholesome experience where the bar, the kitchen, and the stage work together to give you a good experience. I'd say that was our philosophy. What we were going for was more of a jazz club experience, where the stage was an integral part of the concept. At the same time, jazz as a genre is kind of the most respected, if you want, kind of music.
Lukmil, our drummer from Cuba.
Hello, Lukmil.
Ammar.
Pleasure to meet you.
Okay. Maurizio.
Thank you.
Italy.
Okay,
That's a very international band.
Yeah.
We wanted something that represented the city. I mean, this is Cairo Jazz Club. Cairo is an integral part of the concept. And we had to showcase what Cairo had to offer, what the musicians were doing. And a lot of the jazz musicians were working with Oriental music as well and blending Arabic music and Oriental music with jazz in different ways as well. It was an active desire to represent the city and the culture that we're in.
Samer George, who was one of the original members of Eftikasat, has performed many times at the club.
More places that host bands that play jazz are being open, and it's not like 20 years ago. 20 years ago, you wouldn't find. Actually, the Cairo Jazz Club is like the oldest place to introduce jazz. Before that, it was the only place with the opera house, and there were like 2 or 3 artists. They were doing concerts, but they were not like nightly. It would be like once a month maximum. So that scene changed completely in this last 20 years. More acts, more musicians, more places to introduce the music.
Introducing a new audience to jazz is crucial to its survival in Egypt. Luckily, new venues and new artists appear to be keen to make sure this unique musical style continues to thrive. This year's Cairo Jazz Festival brought together some of the world's leading musicians. All of them came with their own style, but many of them made sure their music came with its own Egyptian twist.
There is definitely a distinctive Egyptian sound with Egyptian flavors, special instruments that we have here in Egypt. And now the new projects that you listen to here, using the oud and the ney flute and all these Arabic instruments. They reflect this idea or this sound. There is an Egyptian sound, as there are other sounds of jazz.
Noha Fekri has a lyrical way of describing the music she performs.
If anything, I hope I'm putting forward more love. If anything, I hope I'm putting forward more beauty, more harmony, more hard work, integrity. If anything, I think this is what I would hope to be doing. If soothing, I hope to be soothing to the people who are listening. If I'm covering a tune, or for instance, I'm honoring the people who made it, the composer and the lyrics writer, and the story that it was about.
The first thing that comes to people's minds is that swing, New Orleans, New York jazz. But I think the word jazz itself, for me, it means like to take the music and do it in a different way and give it more space of freedom to improvise and do an interpretation that doesn't exactly sound the same like the original composition. Any composition can be jazzed up, Arabic, African, Latin, Indian. So now the definition of jazz is much wider than what people think. And the mixture between jazz and the different cultures from all around the globe. There is Latin jazz, and there is Indian jazz, rock jazz, classical jazz, everything. All the possibilities were made through jazz.
Evidence that interest in jazz is continuing to spread throughout Cairo can be found at another club in town. Darb 1718 is less than 7 miles away from the Cairo Jazz Club. In the days leading up to the Jazz Festival, Eldor El Wal played the venue in front of a packed crowd. The following day at Afro Cairo, another arts venue, musician Ahmed Omar explained that his band are trying to make music that will appeal to a wider audience.
For our band, we are kind of different. We don't play like jazz, because that we're trying also to mix the music, like give the audience sound of jazz, the idea of jazz, but with some flavor of our music or our culture. Whatever it's culture, Oriental culture or African culture. Because in Egypt you can find the two cultures, and it's very nice things if you live in Egypt. You have the two culture, but people still thinking about Oriental only culture. We didn't use yet the African culture we have here.
While these veterans from the jazz scene are continuing to spread the message, the future probably relies on the next generation of musicians. As part of this year's festival, wannabe jazz stars were encouraged to perform on the outdoor stage.
One of the few times that all of the people who have same taste of music gather in the same place. So you meet a lot of people and you make a lot of connections. And actually the best thing about it is the opportunities you get from it. Music education needs to be renewed, you know? Like, we need to have different styles, because if I'm a musician, I want to learn music, I should have the option to choose whatever suits me, whatever I like to play. But here, you play either classical or Arabic music. So, yeah, we're missing a lot of things in education.
While they may be new to the scene, they still sought inspiration from songs from the past, such as Edith Piaf's iconic La Vie en Rose.
It's very important that we have all kinds of different music festivals. Cairo definitely has to have a jazz festival. The festival is also a representation of what Cairo has to offer. In my opinion, even the visiting artists, those that come in from abroad, they are still selected by the Egyptian organizers to represent whatever vision they have. This meeting of the visiting artists with the local artists, this is very important for Cairo and for the development of Cairo and the evolution of the music scene in Cairo. For the musicians and the audience to see international bands here is something very important. This exchange of ideas, this exchange of energy, it is very important.
I don't think that jazz is the mainstream music even in the United States where it came from. But there is always a place for it. It will never go away. There will be always people who are interested in jazz. It might not be like always in the charts doing the biggest sales, but people will always want to listen to jazz. Not all of them, but there will be followers for jazz always.
I think it's growing, and I think the more also we are, as a country, open to the world, and more people are coming from all over the world, you're sure to find people who are interested in this color of music.
As for the man who has dedicated his life to jazz, will he be back for more next year?
Jazz is beautiful, and it's a really exciting music. I would definitely love to celebrate the 50th anniversary, maybe, like if I'm still alive.
Inside Africa, in association with Zenith Bank.